First on Fox 4 News at 5:30 tonight, a shootout in Saginaw when a special police task force focused on finding a 6-year-old girl's killer went to arrest her teenage neighbor who they say did it. A police officer and the suspect were both wounded. Somebody raped and dumped 6-year-old Alana Gallagher's body on a Saginaw street. Her hands and feet were bound and she was wrapped in a tarp. Police say a DNA match put them on 17-year-old Tyler Holder's porch and that he pulled a gun. Fox 4's Phil Alvarado starts our coverage in Fort Worth, where the wounded officer is being treated right now. Phil.
Yeah, Stephen, we are at Harris Hospital in Fort Worth, where Detective Charles Lodato, a 21-year veteran with the Arlington Police Department, just came out of surgery. He was shot in the groin, but we're told by the police chief that he is expected to be okay. Now, police accuse Tyler Holder of shooting this officer. Police returned fire, shot Holder in the head. Police have not updated his condition. But as you mentioned, an arrest warrant affidavit says that Holder apparently gave up a DNA sample voluntarily, and it matched DNA on Alana Gallagher's body. That's what led police to arrest Tyler Holder at his home.
People in the neighborhood always figured Tyler Holder walked a crooked line.
He was just kind of eerie, kind of a creepy guy.
Since the murder of 6-year-old Alana Gallagher, Yolanda Sierra says Holder was always out with other residents, being the concerned neighbor.
I just kind of wanted to be in the limelight a lot about the case, always outside. He went to the memorial that we were at.
Sierra says Holder raised her suspicions after he showed up at the memorial for Alana Gallagher at Willow Creek Park wearing a wanted T-shirt.
It was a wanted black T-shirt. It said wanted on it, and it was a memorial for a deceased girl, a 6-year-old. So that was kind of, that was a little weird to me.
Matthew Rodriguez doesn't want to show his face. He's been Holder's friend since middle school. He's surprised to hear that police say Holder shot at officers.
The day it happened, that night, man, that's all he was talking about.
It's what Holder said that put a chill on the sweltering day that police moved in to arrest him.
But what was he saying about it?
We need to find out who did it, and he was all just happened in our neighborhood.
Rodriguez says it's hard to believe his friend could be Alana Gallagher's killer. Asked about his neighbor's perceptions of his friend, he can see why.
He was weird. He wasn't a normal kid. He was different. He was Tyler.
And it's why people here say Holder stayed on their radar.
Just neighbors trying to put pieces together, trying to figure out what's going on. Me and her had a little theory that we thought it could have been him because of the way he was acting.
And police say that in that arrest warrant affidavit, one other thing that led them to Holder, they say that in the hours after the discovery of Alana Gallagher's body, that Holder was already going around and telling neighbors, did you hear, that they had identified Alana as the little girl in that tarp. Steve?
Because there was a little short distance between them, maybe people in that neighborhood wouldn't have known that fast. All right, I get that, Phil. What else? There's DNA on her body, and we understand that connection. What else led detectives to him? We hear all the neighbors say, in their words, he was a weird guy and they were suspicious of him. Were detectives hearing that too?
Yes, they were. They picked up on that as well, but really, in the end, it was the scientific evidence, the DNA that linked him to the body. And then also police say that, the body was wrapped in a tarp and there was tape used to do that. And they found pet hair stuck onto the tape. They did DNA test on that, and that matched a dog at Holder's home.
All right. A lot of science involved. Phil Alvarado, live in Fort Worth at the hospital where the wounded detective is right now, just came out of surgery. Phil, thank you. A little more on that wounded detective. I'm going to tell you about Charles Lodato. He's a 21-year-old veteran, was named Detective of the Year for the Arlington Police Department earlier this year. He was shot in the groin, made it through surgery. The bullet, we are told, is still lodged in his hip. He is currently in ICU. Doctors say a field tourniquet put on by someone out in the field on the scene because it was a femoral artery. He likely would have bled out without that tourniquet, so they think that treatment in the field saved his life. Police had already been to Holder, the suspect's house, twice before they went to arrest him this morning. They'd been inside and hauled away a lot of evidence, all without any trouble. Until today, Fox 4's Laurie Berger in Saginaw, in that neighborhood where both victim and suspect lived just 2 houses apart. Laurie.
Well, Steve, they had been to the house before and they had collected a swab from the suspect. However, right now they are going back into the house and they are executing that search warrant. So you can only imagine that that's a long list of items that they want to seize to match up. But they already have what sounds like a pretty solid case going. You know, they came here to arrest the suspect this morning, Mr. Holder, and they got more than they expected. It was around 9 o'clock this morning that team of investigators knocked on the door at 17-year-old Tyler Holder's house, and he does live just a couple of doors down from Alana Gallagher's family. The FBI says that it went down like this, that Holder pulled out a gun and shot Arlington detective Charles Lodato in the upper leg. Officers returned fire, hitting that suspect in the head. Neighbors who have been on edge since 6-year-old Alana Gallagher was abducted and sexually assaulted and then murdered heard what happened.
It was scary. And when you hear that and it's right behind, we knew something was going on this street.
I'm glad it's over. I'm glad they caught somebody. I have a 17-year-old daughter, so I'm glad hopefully it's the right person and it's all over right now.
And you can hear that relief because the folks who live in this neighborhood have really not known what to think for the last 3 weeks. We do have some pictures of Tyler Holder from his Facebook page. One thing I wanted to emphasize that we had heard before or been told by one source or another that little Alana Gallagher had been sexually assaulted, and that is the case. What was lined out in that arrest affidavit, that is how the investigators were able to make the match to Tyler Holder. Steve?
Laurie, if I can, I want to ask you a question about what happened this morning. Sometimes police actually notify a guy if they don't think he's dangerous, we're going to come arrest you, or they talk to an attorney or something like that. Police say he had a gun on him when they knocked on the door, so did he know they were coming? Do we know anything about that part of it?
It's hard to say, and that's something that has not been clarified for us yet. What we do know is that they came by as recently as yesterday and took 4 bags of garbage from his front curb and went through that and found some evidence in that. But whether he knew that they were coming and had prepared for that, you have to think that he figured they would because they had been back to see him and even asked him for that swab.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Laurie Berger in Saginaw, thank you.